Welcome to Timekeeping. This show will attempt to chronicle year-by-year changes to the Walt Disney World Resort, from the exciting new ride openings to the minutia of a store changing names. Join us as we count down to the 50th anniversary of the vacation kingdom of the world. Not all changes to Walt Disney World are permanent installations. 1999 saw several intentionally limited time attractions and non-physical changes that affected the resort as much as anything built to be permanent. The resort was also impacted by the opening of more competition as Universal expanded with their Islands of Adventure theme park, prompting Disney World to respond with its own thrill ride additions. Each park saw new attractions, but the Millennium Celebration would dominate the resort starting in October. Two of the main changes in 1999 weren't even attractions, shows, resorts, even a new park. First was the introduction of the Fastpass system. The first use occurred at Disney's Animal Kingdom in mid-June, when it was added to Kilimanjaro Safari's Countdown to Extinction and the newly opened Kali River Rapids. In the original iteration, guests would have to walk to the attraction, insert a park ticket, and receive a paper slip with a return time on it. The return time would vary depending on how many had been distributed and could range anywhere from a half hour to several hours later. Guests could only receive a second Fast Pass after using their first, or if the return window was further away, 2 hours after receiving their first Fast Pass. It would soon roll out to other parks as well. The Magic Kingdom first saw it added to Space Mountain, while Epcot received it at Honey, I Shrunk the Audience and Test Track. At the Disney MGM Studios, it initially only saw it at Rock 'n' Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith. Disney pin trading was introduced as part of the Millennium Celebration in October. While Walt Disney World and the company in general had been selling pins as merchandise for decades, official pin trading had not been an activity. In addition to the expansion of the number of pins produced, including both open and limited edition varieties, pins of the day were introduced, and cast members at locations throughout the parks also began to wear lanyards with pins that guests could approach them and trade for as part of this hobby. Disney got the idea from seeing pin trading at the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta. Over at the Magic Kingdom, the Pieces of 8 wagon in Adventureland was removed. In Fantasyland, Storytime with Belle began at the Fairy Tale Garden, along the path connecting Cinderella Castle to Cosmic Ray's Starlight Cafe in Tomorrowland. This 20-minute show would have Belle read the story of Beauty and the Beast and have members of the audience, mostly children, come play parts with her in simple costume. After the short story, Belle would sign autographs and pose for pictures. On February 14th, custodian Raymond Barlow was tragically killed while cleaning the Skyway. The ride was started while he was in the ride path. Despite the timing of the incident, the ride's permanent closure on November 10th of 1999 had already been scheduled. The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh opened on June 4th. Like its namesake film, the replacement of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride would take guests into the stories through the books themselves. The journey would begin with the blustery day, complete with warm wind effects, and you then bounce with Tigger as he's introduced, then confronting heffalumps and woozles of Pooh's nightmares. Guests would then enter the flooded 100-acre wood scene where the Honey Pot ride vehicle would bob as if it was floating through. The ride ends with a celebration and guests exit through Pooh's Thoughtful Spot shop. May 21st saw the Main Street Electrical Parade's return to replace Spectro Magic. This version was not the original Magic Kingdom iteration, but the updated Disneyland one. The parade was led off by the Blue Fairy, followed by the Casey Jr. unit driven by Goofy. Mickey and Minnie, of course, were on top of the large drum title float. The Alice units, complete with bees and snail floats, came next. The Caterpillar followed, and then came Cinderella in her carriage, with the ballroom dancers under a canopy behind them. Another garden float led the way for Big Ben, and Peter Pan and Captain Hook on a pirate ship float, with Smee following in a dinghy. The next units were the Hippo, a Calliope, and Dumbo as part of the circus. Next, Dopey drove a mine car to lead the Snow White performers, followed by Pete riding his dragon Elliot. The parade ended, as always, with To Honor America, a patriotic unit with the giant eagle finale. At Epcot, Horizons officially closed its doors on January 9th. While Test Track had been operating since December, its official grand opening was on March 17th. Much of what happened at Epcot in 1999 was tied to the Millennium Celebration that would begin on October 1st. A large tower featuring Mickey's hand holding a wand with 2000 written above it was added to Spaceship Earth. The post-show of Spaceship Earth was replaced with the new Global Neighborhood, which remained largely unchanged except for the replacement of the Ride the Network exhibit with a fake tree that would take and display guests' pictures. The area behind Spaceship Earth was converted to Millennium Central for the celebration. This included the adding of the canopies, the wait time digital board, and as well the pin station, since pin trading was such an integral part of the event. Throughout the event, the pin station would sell the pin of the day. When they were assembled, they would form mosaic posters. Another part of the transition of the area was the Park Central shop, the Centurium, remodeled into Mouse Gear in September. The store was a big change from what had come before, as there were now a lot of mechanical gear structures and as well Disney characters in the decorations. Innoventions was updated with the Road to Tomorrow theme, hosted by the small audio animatronic character Tom Morrow 2.0. This new format was meant to help guide guests through the confusing layout of exhibits, which had previously been set up more like the show floor of a convention. On the east side, the Bill Nye, Family PC, General Electric, and General Motors exhibits all closed on June 1st. A new GM exhibit, Future Cars, the House of Innovention, sponsored by Whirlpool and Panja, and Forest of Our Future, sponsored by Tappy, all opened. Look into Our Future and the Go.com website construction zone opened on October 1st. The Disney.com interactive zone became Disney's Internet Zone as well. On the west side of Innoventions, AT&T updated their exhibit to the Broadband Connection. Kids, look it up. The previous pre-show, the Sega exhibit, inspired by Vision, were removed. Lutron's Ultimate Home Theater experience existed from June through August, and Xerox's Knowledge Vortex, Medicine's New Vision, sponsored by the Radiological Community, Monsanto's Beautiful Science, and Disney Interactive's Video Games of Tomorrow all debuted. Back in the World Showcase, Tangerine Cafe opened in the Morocco Pavilion on September 30th. Journey into Your Imagination opened as part of the celebration on October 1st. This version tied into the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience attraction next door and was centered around the Imagination Institute. Many of the technologically challenging areas of the original ride were removed and the track shortened greatly. The newly repainted trains never went into Omnimover mode, and the large circular part of the track where guests synced to the rotating Dreamfinder and his blimp were removed. After loading for a tour of the Institute, guests' imaginations were scanned and it showed that they were empty. Dr. Nigel Channing, again played by Eric Idle, would put guests through a series of tests in order to spark their imagination. First, they're subjected to sound, such as the train, then a series of illusions, including a fake magnifying glass, a brick smashing, quote-unquote, a glass table, and the butterfly in a cage. Next, guests are subjected to a series of lamps combined with different sounds. After a hidden Figment sign, guests would enter a starfield to watch constellations appear. Gravity is then reversed and guests travel through the upside-down house. Afterwards, guests would be subject to another scan to show their imaginations were now full of ideas, and Figment's voice could be heard. Guests would then enter another starfield room, which would turn into the exit platform, and then guests could go through a severely stripped-down Imageworks that featured lenticular changing posters, a few interactive computer games, a small sound floor, and mostly blocked-off areas. The majority of the Millennium Celebration was centered in World Showcase. In addition to the new nighttime spectacular and parade, the Millennium Village was opened between Canada and the United Kingdom pavilions. The temporary attraction featured a pre-show that featured India, Ethiopia, Kenya, New Zealand, Indonesia, South Africa, Israel, and Namibia. Cast members from each country would introduce themselves and a little information about each nation that was presented. A Brazil exhibit explored the country's relationship with the Amazon, soccer, and carnivals. A Chile exhibit detailed some of the country's unique agriculture and the Easter Island recreations. Expo 2000 included exhibits of the countries included in the pre-show. An Israel exhibit featured a motion simulator ride through the history of the country. Saudi Arabia hosted interactive and virtual reality exhibits about their country. Scotland featured a game of mini-golf that also talked about Scottish inventions. The Sweden exhibit consisted of 4 large eggs raised above the floor that guests could walk through to experience the Swedish seasons. The World Showplace Theater featured different international acts that changed throughout the course of the Millennium Celebration. To top it all off, the World Culture Game was a video trivia contest. The Village also hosted the Gift of Cuisine food court, where 8 booths, each hosting a different world cuisine, allowed guests to sample from Asian, African, Caribbean, Latin American, and European cuisines. Arts and crafts from different countries were sold in the Village Marketplace, and souvenirs were available at Gifts from the World. The Tapestry of Nations Parade debuted on October 1st. The parade would run along the south side of the lagoon from the Millennium Village to Mexico, although the entire parade route did not run the entire way, as there were different step-on and step-off locations. The parade was hosted by the stilt-walking Sage of Time, originally voiced by Tom Kane, changed in mid-December to Corey Burton with a narration by Jeff Bennett. He was followed by a clockwork drum float. The rest of the parade consisted of large puppets worn and operated by performers, interspersed with drum floats. The puppet costumes consisted of 8 main types, known as Reverse Marionette, Disc Man, Hammer Man, The Sprite, Angel Girl, Wiggle Girl, Bird Man, and Aztec Man. The parade score was written by Gavin Greenaway, who also wrote the score for Illuminations 2000, Reflections of Earth. The new version of Illuminations soft-opened on September 22nd and officially premiered October 1st. The concept of the show was to tell the history of our planet. Jim Cummings spoke the narration, inviting guests to join around the fire to share a story. The first act, Chaos, featured fireworks and large-scale fireballs from the Inferno barge in the center of the lagoon. This was meant to symbolize the creation of the Earth and the cosmos. Act 2 was Order, beginning as the flames died down and the Earth globe would move from its dock out to the center of the lagoon among the color-changing fountains. Once in the center, the life section of the show was visible on the globe, showing natural scenes from around the world. Adventure was the next segment, highlighting human achievement and exploration. These sections were largely clear of fireworks, relying on the screens built into the globe and the colored fountains. The home and celebration segments featured more fireworks before dying down again for Act 3, Meaning. The song We Go On would play as the lagoon torches would reignite, along with the central torch, which rose out of the opening Earth globe before the fireworks finale. The show would reach its terrific conclusion, and guests could leave the park to Promise, sung by Kelly Coffey. Over at the Disney MGM Studios, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror received its 3rd show version on March 1st. The new drop pattern, entitled Fear Every Drop, replaced the double drop pattern that was introduced in 1996. This introduced a musical rescore, new timing for the photograph, and 30% more time in the drop shaft. Doug Live opened on March 15th. The show focused on Doug Funny, a 12-year-old boy from the Saturday morning cartoon show that Disney had acquired from Nickelodeon after its 4th season. The show featured 5 original songs and several elements from the cartoon show. Doug trying to date Patty Mayonnaise, the band called The Beats, which was played by audience volunteers, and the superhero Quail Man and Quail Kid, another audience volunteer. Next Door Sounds Dangerous, starring Drew Carey, would replace the One Saturday Morning show in the old Monster Sound Show Theater on April 22nd. The show is based around the concept that Carey is the detective star of a reality TV series called Undercover Live, and the audience hears everything he does in binaural audio. Carey's Detective Foster would investigate smugglers at a snow globe factory as his camera goes in and out, plunging the audience into dark audio-only experiences, including playing with props and getting attacked by bees, as well as getting a haircut and appearing in a knife-throwing show during the course of his investigation. On July 4th, Bear in the Big Blue House officially premiered in the former Soundstage restaurant building. This puppet show, aimed at preschoolers, featured the characters and songs from the Disney Channel TV show. After the main theme, the characters check the mail, dance, talk to Shadow, and sing the goodbye song with Luna the Moon. Guests were seated on the floor, and kids were invited to dance at the same time as the characters on stage. Bear was played by a performer in costume, aside from his human host, and all the other characters were puppets. Down at the end of Sunset Boulevard, Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith was officially dedicated on July 29th and opened the next day. Guests would enter the fictional G-Force Records for a Tour, which was designed after the Desilu Studios. After passing displays of recording equipment and vintage concert posters, guests are invited to view a recording studio where Aerosmith is mixing a new record. After being interrupted by their manager, the band invites guests to their concert, and the manager calls for a stretch, make it a super stretch limo to take guests to the concert. Guests then exit the studio onto a back alley set where they board the Vekoma-designed launch coaster in one of 5 24-person super stretch limo-themed trains. Each train features 120 speakers with its own synchronized music. After a 0 to 58 mile an hour, 2.8 second launch, guests are taken past blacklight decor representing Los Angeles and through coaster elements such as a double inversion batwing or sea serpent roll and a corkscrew for a total of 3 inversions. After the 82-second ride, guests can purchase their on-ride photo or shop at Rock Around the Shop. Also on Sunset Boulevard, Sweet Spells and Villains in Vogue opened on September 14, 1998, a celebration of the Disney villains. When Disney's Animal Kingdom opened in 1998, there was little to do in the Asia section of the park. March 1st saw the first major expansion with the opening of the new attractions in Asia. The Maharaja Jungle Trek opened as a companion piece to the Pangani Forest Trail in Africa. The walk-through area allowed guests to see bats, gibbons, an aviary, and of course, the tigers. The path leads guests through the animal exhibits themed to jungle ruins. Also opening that day was Kali River Rapids. After passing through an elaborately themed queue, the short whitewater raft ride would take guests past an illegal logging camp and down a 30-foot plunge during the 5-minute attraction. While the whitewater elements of the ride were relatively mild, guests do get drenched significantly most of the time. Asia also lost an attraction as the Discovery River taxi became the Radio Disney River Cruise in March. The boats no longer served as transportation and would only depart from the Safari Village station. The attraction now featured a pre-recorded music broadcast by Radio Disney DJs that were supposedly broadcasting from the top of the Tree of Life. Spoiler alert, they were not. The attraction closed permanently on August 21st, to no one's surprise. Journey into the Jungle Book would close in April at the Theater of the Wild, and the theater would return with the new show Tarzan Rocks on July 9th. The new show featured a rock band on stage performing the music as the performers performed stunts and dances on the stage. The show is more presented like a concert than a retelling of the film, opening to 2 worlds while aerialists performed with dancers below them. You'll Be in My Heart focused more on the band, as did Son of Man, but performers ventured out into the stage extensions out in the audience and then gave way to inline skaters on ramps on the stage, all before Tarzan would swing out onto the stage extension. Jane would enter the stage and the band would perform Strangers Like Me as she dances with the performers and Tarzan swings around the set. They would then perform an aerial duet dance. Turk then enters for Trashin' the Camp, which was an interactive portion of the show where guests could participate. The show would end with You'll Be in My Heart. The Polynesian saw refurbishments around the pool and marina area, as well as at Ohana. Many of the longhouses were renamed as Tahiti, Samoa, Bali Hai, Maori, Bora Bora, Hawaii, Tonga, Oahu, Pago Pago, and Moorea became Aotearoa, Tuvalu, Tonga, Rarotonga, Nui, Samoa, Hawaii, Tokolu Rapa Nui, and Tahiti, respectively. Only Fiji remained the same. In April, Discovery Island would close its doors as it was now redundant with the existence of Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park. In the far corner of the resort, All-Star Movies opened on January 15th. The resort was divided into 5 sections: Fantasia, which included the upcoming Fantasia 2000, The Mighty Ducks, 101 Dalmatians, Toy Story, and Herbie the Love Bug. The world premiere food court, Donald's Double Feature Shop, and the Real Fun Arcade are all located in Cinema Hall with the lobby. The main pool is Fantasia themed. There's also a pool themed to the Mighty Ducks. Down the road, the Winter Summerland mini golf course opened next to Blizzard Beach. Designed by Santa's Elves as a vacation spot, the 2 courses are themed to winter and summer and feature sand and snow themed decorations. 1999 saw attractions that would become classics, such as Illumination's Reflections of Earth and Rock and Roller Coaster. but also saw some of the most infamously terrible attractions of all time, such as Sounds Dangerous, Dug Live, and Journey into Your Imagination. Short-term additions like Tapestry of Nations and the return of the Main Street Electrical Parade would influence guests long beyond their tenure. 2000 and the new millennium were now right around the corner, but what would they hold in store for the Walt Disney World Resort? Well, time flies. Enjoying your jump from time to time with us? Well, please hit that like button and subscribe to support this show and others. You can also join the WDWNT Inner Globe Society for exclusive content at patreon.com/WDWNT. If you're looking for a great way to celebrate Walt Disney World's anniversary weekend in October, be sure to join us digitally for the Golden Jamboree, where we'll be assembling Disney legends, luminaries, former Imagineers, and classic entertainers from throughout the 5-decade history of the vacation kingdom of the world. Digital tickets are available at goldenjamboree.com. If you're looking for the perfect gear to celebrate 50 years of Walt Disney World, you can shop for apparel, accessories, and more at carouselofproducts.com. We'll see you real soon here on Timekeeping.